Hello everybody and welcome to Revisiting Disney. This is the series in which every episode you guys, or maybe me, pick a part of the park, whether it's an attraction or something else, and play Armchair Imagineer for the day and talk about how I would, basically replace it if I was forced to. Not because I want to see the attraction or the part of the park change, but because I think it's a fun creative exercise to take a look at a part of the parks that you love in a very different way. Today, we're going to be doing things a little differently. We're not going to be revisiting an attraction. In fact, we're going to be revisiting a restaurant. And the restaurant we're going to be revisiting is right here in the hub in the Magic Kingdom. And it is the Crystal Palace. Now, the Crystal Palace is a very interesting restaurant to revisit because there isn't a whole lot of information about the design of the Crystal Palace. I've tried looking into it, and the best theory I've been able to see on the internet is that the Crystal Palace is meant to act as sort of a transitional restaurant between Adventureland and Main Street USA, with the idea being that it's elegant enough that it would sort of fit in with Main Street USA because it's got that sort of old school vibe to it. But at the same time, it's got a very British architecture and design to it that's very reminiscent of when the British Empire sort of had its roots over in India, and so it sort of would not stand out too much from Adventureland. Now, I don't know how true that is or if that's true at all, but it's an interesting theory, that's for sure. And when I was thinking about how I would revisit this, I initially decided, let's go with a more Main Street focused idea, something more Americana, grounded in that. But honestly, I don't think Main Street needs that. I think Main Street's got plenty. It's got Casey's Corner here for your fast service restaurant. It's got Tony's Town Square up at the front of Main Street. So it's got candy stores. It's got everything you need. But on the other hand, Adventureland, I think the most, I guess if you want to call it, the most elegant restaurant it's got there is the Tortuga Tavern, which I wouldn't put on the same level as something like the Crystal Palace. So here's what I'm saying. For this revisiting, Adventureland is annexing this plot of land, and it is now going to become an extension of Adventureland as opposed to an extension of Main Street USA. And we're going to revisit it in a very interesting way. And I say interesting because it's not probably very accurate. It's really more based on, I think, a couple of connections between films and misconceptions maybe from me growing up and that have just sort of grown and evolved. But here's my idea. Let's redesign this to look like basically Disney's interpretation of a very, what's the word I'm thinking of? Exotic bar/restaurant. Similar to the bar from Casablanca, right? With Humphrey Bogart, famous classic film. He's in Casablanca, that's in Morocco. So I don't think that necessarily would fit in with Adventureland, but I think it's got that sort of exotic nature to it that would really help with Adventureland. And I think it'd be cool because at the same time, because you're basing it off of a restaurant from the 1940s, it's going to just sort of innately have this, very elegant and nice design to it that I think people visiting today wouldn't stick out too much from Main Street, I guess is what I'm thinking. It would definitely it would stick out a lot more than this does, that's for sure. But I think in general, it would still have a very old school vibe to it, which is exactly what you kind of want out of Main Street. And it's something that you'd get out of Adventureland, right? So, it would be a lot darker, I guess, because there'd be less windows. This is a very open and spacious restaurant, and you compare that to sort of the place from Casablanca, and not so much, but it still has a very cool and elegant design to it. You have a piano in there. You've got really old-timey music. It's the sort of restaurant that I think you'd expect in either Animal Kingdom in some area or in Hollywood Studios, but not here. And that's sort of why I like the idea of it. I like the idea of offering something like that in a park that doesn't have a lot of that, to be honest. I think most of us, when we think of a Disney trip, you think of multi-days, you think of going to all the parks, and so you can get those different experiences at different parks. But, for somebody who might be visiting for one day with their family, this would be a cool, I think, special place that you can eat that you really wouldn't get that experience anywhere else in the Magic Kingdom. Now, there isn't a whole lot else that you could do besides that. You know, you got the design of the building. You could revisit the music and the atmosphere. The food That's a tough one. I mean, if we're going into Adventureland, I think you could get a little more exotic with the food, though at the same time, when you think of Disney, they don't really get too exotic with their food to begin with. They'll usually find the safer of the options, because when you're a tourist, you know, if you're the kind of tourist who wants to try all this exotic and different foods, probably chances are you're vacationing somewhere other than, you know, Central Florida to begin with. But I think as a design choice, I think it would be a very interesting one. Now, the one thing that I could see would be a drawback would be that by being on this side of the water here, it would not transition nearly as smoothly as this does. But, you know, I think that's the one downside that I would take to have something different like that. I guess, for me, I love the idea because I just find eating in the Disney World is a great way to transport yourself to another time and place. You know, it's all about immersion, and you look at, you know, personally my favorite restaurants, they're the ones that do that the most. And a place like this, you know, very nice fancy place to eat, but it doesn't transport me to another time and another place the way I think something like I'm going to call it the Casablanca restaurant, although obviously they take their liberties and make it something different. And I also think the reason I'm thinking of Casablanca is because you've got the Jungle Cruise right next to us, which also starred Humphrey Bogart. The Jungle Cruise didn't star Humphrey Bogart. Let me clarify that. The Jungle Cruise was heavily inspired by The African Queen, which was a film starring Humphrey Bogart. So I think I have that Bogart connection. I think Casablanca. I just think that would be a really cool place to eat. Anyway, let me know what you think of this idea. It is definitely one of the bigger stretches I've had when it comes to revisiting Disney. So I'd love to hear your feedback. What would you put in this place if we had to tear down the Crystal Palace and put a new restaurant up? Would it be themed on Main Street or Adventureland, or maybe something completely different? Let me know in the comments below, and if there's something you'd like to see me revisit, also feel free to let me know in the comments below. I want to thank you all for watching. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at RobPlays. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Whatever you're doing, make the most of it, because it makes it that much better, and I hope to see you all next time for the next episode of Revisiting Disney. Bye, everybody.